do your math. Norman's doing it.
Huh?
Don't do your math.
You mean I gotta erase it all?
Yeah, the one you what, finished days ago?
Just this morning, yeah.
Oh, he's got acetate, and he's good, he used to be a sign maker,
Oh,
so he's doing.
okay, I'll just leave her sit.
Okay, when we get to the point where we can have a work meeting, he's
Right.
gonna come in and we're gonna.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense for us to do it individually, and then just,
No, it doesn't, and it's just, but, Norman, just 2 pages right here.
Black box.
good.
Pages?
Yeah, aren't they all together?
No,
Oh, okay.
over there. Can you pull the extension cord over?
Yeah, one is 2 pages and one's a single page.
Okay,
Yeah.
1, 2.
It says the extension cord. Can you pull that over?
So I'm gonna go backwards. This is the first page, now, the second one. Okay.
1 pages and 1 2 pages.
Yeah, this one, that's what I got. Yeah, one is 2 pages and one's a single page.
I got, this is 2 pages. I got that. Are you muting everybody? Oh.
So it confused me.
That over.
That's the first page of the second.
Sherry, would you hit the gavel? Hi, welcome, everybody here, welcome, everybody here. We'd like to, call to order this meeting on April 22nd, 2020 for the Planning Commission. Will we stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have roll call, please. 2 people first. I see Alan
Alan here.
and Wen's here,
Jerry Zaharis here.
Lee Freilich here.
Jan Trans here. Do we have a declaration of conflict of interest from anyone? No. Good. The first thing on the agenda is gonna be, we're gonna open a public hearing for 10-10-050, rural estate zone discussion and possible recommendation on rural estate zone. Does everybody have their paperwork? When, Alan, did you put it up? Okay. So I'm gonna open the public hearing now. Anybody? Or are any new people? Well, that's what nobody's raising their hand. Okay, I have.
Pam is raising her hand.
Who?
Pam, Quinn.
Okay. Who?
Okay, I've unmuted it. I just have a question. On the 5-acre lot, you've restricted it to 10 horses. I think Alan said last time he wouldn't want to see 20 horses running around, and I think that's a great number. But on 5 contiguous 1-acre lots with 5 houses, 5 setbacks, 5 driveways, accessory buildings, maybe RVs, horse trailers, you know, who knows what else people have on their lots. You're allowing 20 horses. And that's more than was in our previous zoning. It's more than is in the county zoning. And I would just like to know, what is your reasoning behind that?
Thank you, Gail, for your question. These lots were originally sold as horse ranch lots. And I think that we're being very fair to horse owners and to non-horse owners. You now have recourse. If someone is breaking the rules, they have a $750 fine. I'd like to add 1 week after notification of compliance. before they're charged $750. But other than that, I think we're good, I think we're okay. Now, out at Gooseberry, I realize you folks have a lot of problems.
I just don't understand why
I-
the rationale is to increase the
right.
number
Yeah,
of horses
and-
over our old zoning and over the county. When you're not requiring that on a 5-acre lot, they have a lot more space to run around on a 5-acre lot with only one house.
No, that's true, Pam. And the truth of the matter is that the way you described that particular scenario is not math that we did. We know we want to be able to limit. We think it's reasonable to limit a number of horses on one contiguous like ownership lot, but to apply that same standard to the whole community, that you just simply couldn't do that with all of the things that we're doing. So.
What, I don't understand what you mean to the whole community of 1-acre lots.
That's right. I mean, that what you're talking about are 5 different homeowners, each of whom have property rights. So to apply what we can do to one property to 5 people who have smaller lots and still have rights, and the surveys indicated that overwhelmingly in Apple Valley as a horse town, people wanted, quite frankly, higher even than the limits that we gave them, including no limit. And so we felt like it was a good compromise to pick the lowest number that the overwhelming majority of people wanted, which was 4. I understand.
Even though it was higher than our old zoning and higher than county zoning.
That's correct.
Is it legal for the town to have higher numbers of animals allowed than the county allows?
Yeah, we can make our own rules. That's a good question though. But let's keep in mind that not only did we do that, but we also tried to make much more specific what not only a penalty is, but what constitutes a penalty. And so we're really
I think we
hoping
talked last time about how hard that'll be to enforce.
it is really hard, and it's not just this particular issue. Upholding what we collectively lock into law in this town is pretty hard to do. But we're counting on each other to be good neighbors. So let's see how this goes.
Good luck.
I know. Really appreciate your input, though. I totally hear you. I feel your pain. I do.
I do too. I'm surrounded by horses, wolves, and moose dogs. So I know how you feel.
But I think most of you live on larger acreages than one, don't you?
Some of us do, but we're definitely adjacent to. I'm surrounded by 1-acre lots, so I get you. Totally. Yeah.
I have 1 acre also. So
Okay, I think we probably since there's not that many of us, we probably spent more than 3 minutes on that one. And are there any other public comments people want to make?
Mark,
North of the county, 10241 Union. First of all, your code, Janet, says it's up to $750. So that doesn't mean that they're gonna get a $750 fine. And
that's just their abuses to the
well, I'm just
animal and
saying,
abuses
your
to the
code,
neighbors.
you're saying, you kind of said that they'll get a $750 fine, but then your code says it's only up to $700, $750. So that could mean, it could be $10, it could be whatever.
Mark, if it's the thing that she's dealing with out there, I think it'd be a $750 fine. Her house is full of flies and maggots and
Well,
stuff
I don't
like
have
that.
too much time. Also too, on the survey, it said, should the town limit the number of horses or cattle in rural estate zones? And you had, the total was 54% wanted them, 54 people wanted them, there was some kind of, they wanted them limited, and those were non-horse owners, and 50 horse owners didn't want any limits. So why aren't those 54 people that answered that they wanted limits? I don't believe that those non-horse owners wanted 4 horses per acre.
It was 67%.
No, here, I'll show it to you, and I got something else too. Right here,
Alan, you should be here. This is your baby.
right here,
You hear what's going on?
right here, this section right here, right here. And then I have this
I can't see that, whatever she's pointing to.
showing, the unfortunate person who gets surrounded by horses.
I'm one of
Well, no, you're not.
the fans.
No, you're not.
I have John Hayes, I have,
John isn't even near your house.
he's right across the street from me, and his horses get loose, and they.
So anyway, that's, and then the only other thing I have to make a comment, well, is that as, you know, as town planners, when you send out a survey and you have more than, let's see, what was it that I wrote down? 28 out of 36 horse owners do not think they need to clean up. And then you have 29 horse owners who do not think they need to provide any kind of shade or shelter for their animals. Wouldn't that put up a red flag for you guys?
Oh, I got your email, and,
Yeah,
yeah, it kind of does, because we're looking out for the welfare of the horse.
right.
And
so I-
cleanliness, let me speak, cleanliness also is taking care of your horses properly. Providing them shade, some people don't think they need. I'd like to see it, because,
So I mean, you know, so you're gonna put 4 horses on an acre. That's really gonna end up being, those horses are only gonna be about on a quarter or less of an acre. Those 4 horses, those people don't think they need to clean those horses. Do you know what, you know, have you lived next to somebody who doesn't clean and it rains and it's in the summertime? Do you know what that smells like? Because I have 3 of them and I clean daily and it still stunk.
yeah, I know.
And so like the non-horse owners, they don't have a say.
Yeah, they definitely have a say.
Well, you only had 104 people answer.
Well, that's a pretty, I mean, I don't know if you know much about statistics, but that's statistically extremely valid. We have,
Well, then the only other question I have is how many horses, if you have 4 acres, how many horses do you have on 4 acres?
and I appreciate the comments, thank you.
I still have a question.
Keep going, get you, Ellen.
How many horses do you allow on 4 acres?
I'm sorry?
How many horses on 4 acres, Alan? She wants to know.
We're limiting it to 10, right?
Yeah,
Limit, so yeah, that'd be 10.
It's 10?
yeah. You can have 4 acres,
Yeah, we have 5 or under acres, so we're limiting it to 10, yeah. That's way more than the 3 minutes. We need to move this along a little bit, Janet.
Well, the only reason why I'm asking that is because on A, you say lots less or greater than 1 acre will be appointed 25 points in acre increments. Then if you go up, you know, if you have an acre and a quarter, you get another, 25 points. But
Right.
it doesn't really say, it doesn't really say anything. And then you come down to your next one where it says,
That's just how you calculate the points. It doesn't have to say anything more than that.
okay, so if I have 4 horses, if I have 4 acres, then I could theoretically have 16 horses.
No, because
That's great.
we limit you if you have 5 or less acres. We just discussed this with Pam. We limit you to 10 horses. So that's the answer. I answered.
I didn't, what did you say? I couldn't understand. What did you say, Jen?
He said that there's a maximum of 10 horses on,
5 acres.
per 5 acres. That's in section
But it doesn't
11.
really,
B1.
the wording
It's in
doesn't really
section B,
really say it, because then it
One.
says per 5 acres, a maximum of 10 large animals per 5 acres, but I don't know, to me, the wording is a little confusing. So I'm just,
So the wording is what you're having the problem with.
I'm just, to me, that wording is a little confusing.
It's confusing to say that it's not to exceed a maximum of 10 large animals.
Well, the part that I'm having a problem with is per 5 acres. So it says per 5 acres,
Right.
but it doesn't say under 5 acres. So under 5 acres,
So
you know, what I'm saying is,
No, so you want us to list every increment between 0 and 5? That's impossible. There's an infinite number of numbers.
We're supposed to use common
All
sense.
right, we can't do that.
I'm just saying, well, you know, that's fine, then just leave it go.
Yeah,
Well, no,
anybody with
I've noticed that
some
most
common
of
sense
the-
would,
most of the, complaints are from Gooseberry.
Well,
No,
we gotta hire
no, I
somebody.
understand that. I understand that, Marjorie. We're not here to fight with you about it. But you need to probably get together with your neighbors and then have your DNR.
Well, are you saying that I don't have a say that, to what goes on in the town because I live in an area that has CCNRs? Is that what you're
No,
saying?
that's not what I'm saying.
Well, that's basically what
That's
you
not what
said.
I'm saying at all.
you've had plenty to say. Nobody's discounting the fact that you haven't had plenty to say.
But you just said because I live in Gooseberry.
Then you folks should get together as a community.
But don't you, but you're saying that people that live out there don't have a right to say anything?
No, I think what she's saying is that in Gooseberry, in your particular development, you have CCNRs.
I understand that, but so does
Not
several other places in this town have CCNRs.
That's just to point out you have those, other people don't. But Janet, we need to move this
I
along.
have a question.
Okay, Richard.
Rich Osowski, 1024 West Little Pinion Way. It's in a perfect world that you can get along with your neighbors to ask them to please do
Yeah.
something. It doesn't happen that way. I've went to a number of neighbors, I've asked a number of neighbors to go talk to their neighbor, and it created a big problem. And they actually came almost close to shooting each other. So I don't ask neighbors to go talk to neighbors anymore,
Yeah.
because that's a liability that, for instance, Pam tried. There's a few other people that tried, and it got into a big mess. So the town's responsibility to me is not put people in jeopardy of getting in a hassle with their neighbors. That's the reason you have nuisance complaints. A lot of people don't like to file nuisance complaints, but you'll find Gooseberry has filed more nuisance complaints than any other community in the whole Apple Valley, because they do want to keep the area looking nice. The problem is enforcement. That's where you take me into consideration. I cannot enforce anything, and what I did enforce in Gooseberry was extremely hard. It took me months and months. The courts are jammed up. You ain't gonna get any court action this year. So try to take it to Rachel and get the prosecutor to do something is extremely difficult, because I know on a personal basis, I deal with that. So the problem is, I gotta deal with the smell and the flies and the fines. I have to determine what the fine is gonna be. That comes up to me saying, okay, this person, and everybody will say, I'm biased, that you fine me $750 and you fine them $10. You're creating a problem that's gonna kind of compound each other. And I don't get involved in the CCRs. It's not something the town takes up. That has no bearing on anything the town does. I wouldn't even bring it up at all. St. George does it, Hurricane does it, Porterville does it, and also any other town, Rockville does it. So I deal with those towns also by calling them up for advice. I gotta have something spelled out. You kind of wouldn't go with the shipping, with the containers to dump their poop in. I need to, so I don't have a hassle with an owner.
Yeah.
And you gotta make it easier on the code enforcer. You just can't dump something on me and tell me I gotta go count flies, or I gotta get my sniffer.
No,
I don't smell anymore. I don't really care, but neighbors do care. So if you could help the code enforcer enforce this for horses, that's fine. But I gotta find some way of telling them they need to clean up. This is just in the eye of the beholder, and you put it on my back as a code enforcer.
okay, Richard, I think that we should offer these people dumpsters to put their food
Oh,
in.
that would help.
Yeah,
I agree. And the dumpster's cheap.
I know they are.
And it's cheap compared to some of what these owners will do that have horses.
My owner across the street, she's got 4 garbage cans. And
Yeah.
she's got 3 horses. She puts the poop in the garbage cans and the garbage man takes it away. And then we take the other half.
How many horses? 3 horses?
3.
We got 1 horse and we use the garbage can and it fills a dumpster up, 1 full dumpster up every week.
Yeah.
So I would prefer to have one of those green dumpsters and it destroys the dumpster because you know how heavy that poop is?
Yeah.
And you know
especially
when
after
it rains,
Yeah.
how heavy that poop gets? So am I supposed to go back as a volunteer and continue checking on people to make sure they pick up their horse poop? You put no requirements on me to enforce a code. I need direction. I need a way to do it.
Alan, is there somewhere in here that we could add that a dumpster is available for manure?
No, if you recall, last week, Sean actually recommended that we don't do anything related to providing in this particular ordinance. Now, providing for the disposal of waste, which is why we took out.
Yeah.
But that, there was a reference in here to a place that the town might provide for composting of manure. As far as I know, the town, I haven't heard anybody say that that's not going to move forward. It's just not going to show up in the ordinance. Same thing with we could certainly make available at the town office on the town website information about how to yourself extra dumpsters and how to use them, those kinds of things. We could even maybe make recommendations about how to keep up after your animals, but that doesn't belong in an ordinance. Now, as far as enforcement goes, I think that's a conversation we have to have with staff. I don't know that that's a planning commission, because it's much greater than that, right? It doesn't just do what we discussed. We did try to strengthen what constitutes running afoul of this particular ordinance in here. We try to make as much specific as we can, references to pests and odor and so on. I don't know there's any other measurement tool we can use. Everybody has a different sense of smell. If you remember last week, also our attorney did suggest that the only real way these things get litigated is when you've got 2 or 3 probably actual complaints. And so again, I know that sounds like we're passing the buck on to neighbors, but the fact is, what else can we do as a town? We can't have a horse manure smeller on staff that we pay that just goes around, and I just don't see how that's possible. So we have to rely. I know it's tough.
Yeah.
But nobody gets shot over conversations about manure. That would really be a bummer. I don't know how the town could mitigate that.
Here's the problem with 3 people complaining. You take an example of Pam. In other areas, you don't have a lot of people living by each other. They're not all packed together. We are separated by a lot of empty lots. Unless I can run down those people that own those empty lots and serve them notice to come out and smell for their empty lot, I can't get those people to do that because Pam doesn't have any neighbors that would really help her out. Now, I can get a bunch of people to find nuisance complaints. That's not a hard thing in Gooseberry. They're willing to do it. But in certain areas, they don't have enough people around them to do 2 or 3 nuisance complaints. And unless you put something in the code for me, I need direction.
We can factor that in on a complaint by complaint basis. I mean, if you literally 100% of your neighbors are complaining and that's just one person,
Yeah.
I think that's a complaint. That's a legitimate complaint. That's very different. And again, the attorney just simply said, if it gets into the courts and you have to defend it, the more people you have, the better. That's all. We can't put a number in an ordinance though, because like you said, we're scattered. We're a pretty rural community.
I'll take one person to Rachel and have the prosecutor go after him. That's not a problem. I've done that. But the problem is that we gotta follow through with it and I can't stop this from the smell and the flies to actually enforcing things. I will never charge anybody any money, I'll be honest to you, right up front, for a violation, because that's a judgment call on my part. And that won't stand up in court.
Okay. Again, we should have that conversation with staff then, because that right there is a component of whatever the job description of a code enforcement officer is. You basically just made some statements like, I'm not going to do the things that an officer should do. If that's the case, then, I mean, hopefully there's at least a set of bullet points that a code enforcement officer is supposed to do.
Oh, I got that, and I got every one.
It doesn't have anything to do with that.
But actually, I've sent that, what a code enforcer is supposed to do. It's a section passed in 2007, and it's got a big description. I have a lot of leeway, a whole bunch of leeway that I can make judgment calls on.
Okay. And again, any of
I'm a code enforcer. But
the
I'm just trying to narrow this down so I don't have people in Gooseberry knocking at my door. Unless I like to send them to your door, and maybe that would help me out. And I've done that because what I did, I passed out the emails of everybody, and I said, you guys need to go and email these people. And that's the reason, you know who these people are here? They're Gooseberry people.
right, yeah.
And they're the ones that's gonna be hurt the most. And I have to tell these new owners, and I talked to 3 of them today that are building houses in Gooseberry. I have to give them an answer, and it isn't a very pretty answer what I have to tell them. And that's where they're having a problem with it. As time goes on in Gooseberry, you're finding more people are gonna build. There's 3 homes coming up, and they're gonna be on the side of codes, and then that causes a big more problem. So anyway, that's basically, I have no direction as far as how to enforce anything, and that's bad enough as it is. So that's where I'm trying to let you know for the future.
Okay, yeah, I think we understand it. I'm sorry we're having such a problem out there. I really am.
People are wanting codes, and it isn't a problem. Go out there and talk to the neighbors. I think you should visit some of these neighbors.
I have visited.
And you've read the letters. Go
Yeah.
talk to those people and see what they tell you. And I can name every one of them.
Well, we don't need to do that now, because we've argued this point now for 6 months. And we have been arguing about Gooseberry and animals and shipping containers for 2.5 years.
Don't we need to close public comment on this agenda item, Janet?
No, the only thing, I think everything looks great. I really do. I think you did a wonderful job on this, Alan. The only thing.
We're still in public comment, so
Oh,
it's probably prudent to.
is it pretty? Yeah, we're gonna close public comments
Do you
right now.
want to allow any additional public comments?
I'd like to say something.
Okay,
I've only lived
What
here
is
for
your
3
name?
years. My name is Gary Dooley,
Gary Dooley.
51 Smithsonian Way.
okay,
I've lived here 3 years. I like it. I've had horses in my past.
yeah,
Both neighbors on either side have animals, but they keep it up. I don't have any complaints with them.
okay,
But I've noticed there's been a change in the people that are moving here. The people who are moving here, when I first came here, it was kind of a mixture between horse property and kids.
yes.
And they don't melt very well.
Kids and horses don't know.
Well, I'd rather have the horses anytime. But a way to mitigate some of the problem maybe is, I know a lot of people who moved in and say, where can I get some fertilizer? I said, my God, just follow your nose. you know?
Really? That's what I do.
But if that was possible, it could be somehow they were made aware this particular person would like you to take his stuff. I will take it if you let him put it on your property.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be the answer to the whole thing because we're still having vacillated to a center position.
Well, it would help.
It would help. It would help right now. It would be 2 groups working together.
That's what my husband does. He goes around and collects horse poop. So, you know, if my husband does it for, you know, I'm sure there's other people doing it.
There are, yeah, there's those new houses that are being built out there,
Now, it's a beautiful place to grow gardens, and you
and they
need
think
horse,
because the ground is crap.
well, you need horse manure.
We
and
need horse
horse.
manure.
horse manure and worms to break down the soil.
Exactly, so
Right.
this could work for mitigating until the balance swings one way or the other, and then we have a positive majority
Yeah.
that wants this, so everybody else shut up, because that's the way it is and the way it was when you moved here.
Yeah,
I just can't see why everybody's fighting, they want what you got, you gotta want what they got, you know? At least try it.
we gotta try. We gotta try. We're a town, we need to get along. And I hate to make people feel like they don't belong, you know, or we don't care about how you feel. Because we care about how everybody feels. But when it comes to writing code, it's real hard.
It's almost impossible.
It's almost
People
impossible.
have to respect each other's needs, their property, up to a point.
Yes,
Then once you cross that line, then the CCs come in,
yes,
because they crossed a line.
yes.
Now it's time to somebody step up and say, this is what we have to do, this is what we run.
Okay.
But we're
agree.
just like this.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that, and because, I don't have any animals, you know, I don't have chickens or
That's a
horses
shame.
or, huh?
That's a shame.
No.
People, never trust people that don't like animals.
Oh, I used to raise goats and chickens,
I'll
but,
let you pass.
okay, thank you. But I'm a gardener, so, so I don't like, I have a big fence around my yard, and so I don't have dogs. But, does anybody else have anything to say? Any more comments?
Feel free to unmute yourself or on Zoom for any public comments. We
If
have
not,
we
I
have
have
a
a
couple, we have a couple in the chat window that should probably be read at this time.
Okay,
Mayor Lisenby commented that, I noticed neighbors already building shelters knowing this ordinance is coming. Debbie Kopp stated, I think before we commit to a town dumping ground, we need to have more information of where, how the manure will be handled and how the odor will be controlled at the town dumping ground. Mayor Lisenby replied, we have plenty of room for a town compost pile. We can locate it way back from everything. We can also encourage them to use the dumpster.
and they can also spread their manure too, which gets rid of it very nicely. Okay, I'm gonna put it, in public comments at this time. Alan, the only thing I'm gonna change in here of yours is you have, punished by a fine up to $750. That's okay, but I wanna add a week. They get a notice and they have a week to comply. Is that okay with you? That's the only thing I've changed.
$750 a week?
No, a week to comply with the complaint.
What is the language you're putting in? I'm sorry.
Is that okay?
I'm not clear as, can you read me the specific sentence you want to add?
Okay, you have violations, ABLU 10-10-050B11 is considered an infraction and punishable by a fine of up to $750. I would like to add, once you are served notice, you have 1 week to comply before you ever get fined,
Oh, I see.
okay?
I mean, that, to me, that's what the up to implies, is that there's,
It doesn't make it clear,
about this last week, that if, somebody's out of town, or they
yeah,
can't arrange to have a front end loader or whatever, and they've got a month's worth of poop, and it's gonna take them a couple weeks to move it, we had that kind of hypothetical in front of us. I'd in spite of everything you
I
said,
like to put it in the language.
to take care of it, to
Okay,
force them. I don't know. I feel a little weird about giving. If you want to give a specific date, maybe make it 2 weeks or a month or something like that, just so that there's leeway.
Can I tell you what a violation order says on it?
Take it and say, I've got to take care of
well,
my.
the public comments have ended, I'm so sorry. So how long did you say, Alan, a month?
I was saying a month, but if you feel like you have to put something in there, I felt like the up to gives the leeway then
Okay,
to determine on a case by case, is this an infraction that's ongoing? If it is, here's your $750 fine, no questions asked. If it's you've been gone and the teenager taking care of your horses didn't shovel the stalls, let's give you some time to take care of it.
okay, good. Because we want to make sure, like Sean said last week, the last time we were all together, that if we have pictures of flies and stuff in Gale Town, and we can prove the smell is a nuisance to the neighbors, that we can go, and Richard can go to our.
Right. Yeah, that speaks to enforcement. I don't know how much of that needs to be in an ordinance.
Okay, thank you very much. My notes. Okay, I'm gonna close, any more comments on the horses?
I thought it was.
It is closed, but, the discussion of possible recommendation on 10-10-050 RE rural estate zone. With the changes that we're gonna put in, could I get a motion to send this to the town council? Jerry, please.
Yeah, I make a motion that we accept amendment 10-10-050 rural estate zone for Apple Valley, amended as we have discussed.
Okay. Second,
Aye.
vote,
Aye.
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 aye, Win? What, okay, Win said aye. Okay, we're gonna open a public hearing on amendment 10-10-100 recreational vehicle zone, vehicle parking zone. I have gotten a lot of emails. And does anyone here have does anybody have a comment on recreational vehicle zone? Up in the corner. Who's that?
Russ.
Who's that, Russ?
Yeah.
Okay, Russ.
Can you folks hear me okay?
Yeah, Russ, we can hear you.
Hey, thank you much again for the opportunity to discuss this at a public hearing. I wanted to share a couple things with the Planning Commission as to why this is such a sensitive subject for the area of Cedar Point and South Zion Estates. This area became aware of a request at a March 25th for rezoning for a parcel of 9.22 acres at the main entrance to Cedar Point. And while this may have been withdrawn, it alerted this community area of Apple Valley to a potential proposed site that the developer might be pursuing. So that's why so many people came forward with recommendations and so forth, because they have a real concern about that, as has been previously expressed. And what also contributed to that is because, as many of you are aware, there is an approved tiny home project business at the Canyon Road 59 area of Cedar Point. The problem is it's being operated without a business license. There's been numerous people renting the tiny homes that have been turned into the town offices. And in reality, it's not a tiny home park, it has become an RV park. Let me explain why. Per your own town ordinance 10.4.010, under the definition of tiny home, it says that it must be placed on a permanent foundation, or it shall be considered a recreational vehicle, and may only be placed in a recreational vehicle park zone. The 4 trailers that are down there that look like tiny homes are in fact on their wheels. They're not on a permanent foundation, and therefore are in fact considered RVs. They even have individual license plates on the back end of them. There have been numerous photographs taken of people renting them with out-of-state plates. It's also of the belief that they are individually owned, not by the owners and operators of the RV park itself, and I'm going to call it an RV park because in essence that's what it is.
Yeah.
And so that has led to this and heightened issue within Cedar Point. We already have one illegal business being conducted. Then on 325, there was a proposal to potentially rezone for another one. With that being said, I am pleased with many of the recommendations that I'm seeing in tonight's proposed amendment. But I will bring to your attention the perimeter fence is talked about in two different locations. On page 2, about 2/3 of the way down under 9D, it says there will be a 6-foot fence which adheres to town standards shall be erected along the side and rear property lines unless otherwise approved by the Planning Commission. But on page 3, paragraph, I guess that would be F1, it talks about the perimeter fence again, where it says shall be erected at the perimeter. So in other words, the perimeter fence is duplicated in 2 areas and the language is not consistent. So I would recommend you resolve that by eliminating one of them and going with one in one location or something like that. Another paragraph that still has some concern is on page 3, paragraph F8, where it talks about a recreational vehicle park and tiny home or cabin park may be combined in one park. Details of such mixed zoning being outlined in a development agreement. I would rather see it spelled out in an ordinance, particularly this ordinance, by adding a simple sentence, and that even in a mixed zoning park, they must comply with the minimum standards of an RV park. If you're going to have RVs in the park, it ought to comply with the minimum standards. And so I sincerely hope that there will be action taken against the illegal park at the secondary entrance to Cedar Point, operating without a business license, operating without meeting the terms and conditions of their own agreement, and that I would request you consider the 2 items I brought up in the ordinance tonight. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Russ, and I appreciate your communication. I really do. Does anybody else have anything to say?
Are we gonna have a survey on this?
Yes, we do. Or no, we don't.
Well, is it down
Can you
here,
state your
survey?
name, please, just for the,
We have?
What?
can you state your name for the?
Oh, Margaret Osowski, 1024 West Oak Canyon. Can we, is the town gonna do a survey on this?
I would like to talk to you about an idea I have.
So what?
No, it's not in line with this. This is a discussion we're gonna have on number 7. And, this would eliminate a lot of this stuff.
Was the question, did we do a survey?
Yes.
But that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah,
No, you know, like if you did with shipping containers and you did with horses?
Yeah, I don't think we do them every time, just when we feel like it's particularly important to gather extra information, but we always by law have to have these public meetings, and we welcome your comments.
yes. Does anybody else have any comments? I'd like to close the public hearing. Does anybody, do you have any comments over there? Do we need to read then?
Nope.
Okay. On 10-10-100, recreational vehicles are designed and intended from the beginning to serve the transit or traveling public that travels with their own recreational vehicles needing a place to hook up their own recreational vehicle. A minimum size 12 acres, I think that should be changed to 15 acres, minimum. And then the primary location for an RV vehicle park is close to Highway 59 or other major roadway, shall not be located within 1,000 feet. I think that should be changed to 1,500 feet of residential neighborhood. And that is defined as the end of the person's yard who's closest to the recreational vehicle, to the first pad or building in the recreational park. So these are the changes I like to see.
Are you suggesting adding that definition? Because I think Sean recommended we not do that last time.
Right, yeah.
Not do that. He wanted a definition in there.
No, he specifically said we should just leave it residential neighborhood.
Yeah, it should be by a residential neighborhood.
Because that's the common language in ordinances.
Okay, everybody tells me C2. Oh, it's a C2, it's a C2, it's a commercial. Okay, what goes into commercials? Laboratoriums, baked goods shops, banking, loans, barber shops, books, clothing, confectionaries, custom dressmaking, neighborhood markets, medical, dental offices, department, furniture stores, dress shops, pharmacies, tricos. These are all C2s. All these things could go in out there. And they would enhance the neighborhood instead of detract from the neighborhood. And I'm sorry, but I'm tired of hearing, well, it's commercial, we can do what we want. Well, not necessarily if it's gonna put a whole community out and lower their property values. You know, and C1 uses permitted. Barbershops, beauty salons, drugstores, grocery stores, laundromats, variety stores, service stations, liquor stores and restaurants. You know, this is the national code for C1s and C2s. There's not an RV park in one of them.
So Jane, I think I heard you earlier suggest bumping it up to 15. I would agree with that. I think a minimum of 15 would be great.
Yeah.
Starting point. As far as the 1,500 feet, I know we had a little bit of a debate about this last time. Some people suggested even 2,000. The concern I have about making it really any longer than 1,500 is that already I think there's going to be, I can envision an application that's going to come to us where some portion of the property is closer than 1,000 feet to somebody else's backyard.
Yeah.
Way on the outskirts of the thing, and nobody's going to care. And I think what we're more concerned about is there a lot of activity right next door where people are living?
Yeah.
It's like 1,000 feet kind of does that. But I don't know. I mean, I guess we could bump it if you think we need to.
Well, I've listened to the people out at Cedar Point and South Line, you know, the states, and they really don't want this stuff out here.
No, I understand that.
Something that would enhance the neighborhood and bring value. This is where our tax base is too. Something that brings value to this area would be better.
No, I agree. That's why I think if we strengthen it to 1,500, it just makes it that much more difficult to meet that.
Okay.
So I do agree with the 15. I'd like to see a larger, more professional operation. That does, though, that further down, there's a reference to an upper limit of the total number of units. Where was that, Jerry?
Yeah, 7 units per acre rather than 10.
Yeah.
If we're bumping up the minimum acreage, do we need?
I don't think we do.
To limit the total number if we're limiting how dense they can be anyway. I mean, you know, what if somebody wants to put a 30-acre park in?
Yeah.
They immediately can't, the ROI and that's not gonna work if we're saying you can't have more than 140, right?
Okay, and another thing I wanted to add to that is we didn't talk about sewage. Pumpable sewage storage is a must, or an evaporated septic system. We do not want the sewage to leach into the water table. Period. They're doing it, they're gonna do it across the street to water the golf course. And, we either need to have pumpable tanks like they do at Chevron, or we need evaporative septic systems that pump out, gray water for plants and things like that. I think we could talk about this language a little bit more. And, straighten it out. I think it has to be 15 acres, can't be by residential. Alan, what do you think?
Jerry, since you took a second shot at this, right? You want to kind of walk us through what?
Yeah, I didn't address anything on a sewage system itself. We didn't have anything in it before, and I didn't see, we didn't talk about the opportunity of putting a sewage system in there as to what it should be, but it does make sense that they have, it's just like those tiny homes. If they don't have a decent system, it's all going to go in our groundwater.
Yeah.
And if we get a big, somebody puts in a 25, 30 acre system with several hundred traders in it, that's a lot of dumping.
Yeah, sure. No,
everybody dumps when they get to one of these locations that they can hook up to a dump. So
yeah.
I guess what I'm wondering is that covered under another ordinance somewhere? Marty, you have?
Marty has a hand up. Marty?
Sorry, I was working on the unmute part of it. Yeah, the Southwest Health in the state of Utah manages any commercial septic systems or any kind of sewer system. And it's nothing we want to put in the ordinance because they would, that could change on any kind of basis, but no one can just go in there and put in a Holden septic system and call it good for, 100 RVs.
No.
They're going to have to design that, and it doesn't even go to Southwest at that point. When it's a commercial system, it gets bumped up to the state level, and the state determines what the needs are, what the filtration level is, things like that. And it's different for commercial and it's for homes. And I trust that they're going to, because we won't let them build unless they have all that certification from the state. Yeah. And they're concerned about everything that you're concerned about. And I don't think you need any language in there because it's a given that it's part of our permit package anyway for any commercial development that they have septic or sewer certifications from the state and answers to that.
Because they can't just have septic lines. No?
No, it has to be approved by the county and the state.
Okay. That's all I have on this. Do you, Alan, have any other ideas?
I was just curious if we could have Jerry just kind of walk us through the changes he made, just.
Okay.
And Jerry, if you could just, if necessary, reference why, because we have had an earlier public comment about this.
Yeah, as the changes that were made after all of the discussion, that 12 to 15 unit or 12 to 15 acre size was what everybody pretty much understood would work. 1,000 to 1,500 feet away from any residential neighborhood makes more sense. Mm-hmm. The other change was the minimum. Well, that was already done. Minimum size. The total units not to exceed 140 if we get something bigger than that, you know, maybe they have a larger park, but they might put other things on it. And 140 units is about what we thought would not jam up our area too bad. The block wall fencing that we pulled out of there, block wall fencing just turns this into a closed community when you have a block wall going up everywhere. I think it should be something that matches the area. It could be a block wall, but not necessarily. I think it just needs to meet the standards of the town and be something that is appropriate for the area. And that's why I changed that one to that. Landscaping need to be designed for low water consumption, which we added. Again, that 6-foot fence came back in there on the next page on item 1.
Why is that in there twice, Jerry?
You know, I don't know why it wound up in
I mean,
there.
one is the perimeter and one is 3 sides, so.
Yeah, I think we should just strike 9D.
Yeah, I think that line 1 could be gone and leave it just in one place.
On which number?
Which would you prefer, 9D or the other one is all 4 sides and one is 3 sides?
Yeah, I think along the side and rear property lines is probably the one we want to leave in there.
Because otherwise it's perimeter, which would mean all around.
Right, yeah, so.
We can't have a fence in the drive-in, I mean.
No,
So,
and
you probably
so-
take out F1.
take out, yeah,
Take out the perimeter fence,
take
Yeah.
out the perimeter fence.
okay.
Let's see.
It would just be for, between any residential,
No, you'd want to,
where they could see it, or any resident could see or,
I think you'd want it regardless.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for safety reasons.
Right,
Yeah.
it's a protection deal for them and for other people, you know.
Yeah, people,
But it's a safety feature all the way around.
okay.
The other thing was taking out that Shelby item 3 curb and gutter, taking the curb and gutter out.
I agree with you.
If we require curb and gutter, then they've got to have somewhere for the water to go. They have to have retention ponds, or they have to have some kind of a septic system to handle it all. And without it, the water flows off and into the ground, and that's where we want it.
Go ahead, Marty.
I was going to say that they have to provide that anyway. Curb and gutter does not prevent them from having to do that, because at some point when they're doing their engineering design, they're going to have to come up with where's the water going to go, where's the retention pond, all that still into play. It doesn't change any of that. It just changes. And I totally agree that we don't need curb and gutter inside of an RV park. Blacktop, I think, should be a minimum for the roads.
Yeah.
And anyway.
For item 9 there, does anybody think we should have more specificity with regard to traffic flow? I mean, one of the things we talked about last week was, I don't know what the standards are, and maybe they're covered by Department of Transportation anyway when you build one of these things. But if somebody put in a 30-acre park with lots and lots of RVs, we talked about maybe requiring more than one entrance. Does anybody think there's a need for us to make that explicit here, or does sufficient area for check-in, do you think, cover it? Nobody has any opinion. All right, then we can just leave it like that. That's fine. I mean, again, the engineering plans will, I'm sure there are rules relative to traffic patterns based on how many units you're going to have, right?
Too many variables, Alan. I can't write everything in there. There's too many variables, I think.
Right, I agree. You're probably right. Yeah. Tish?
There's fire code that covers that. They have to have an entrance and an exit.
Okay, perfect. Great. We're good then. Thank you.
Yeah, that egress and ingress are important in any one of them, but that ingress where they're checking in is where the problem is created, and that's what we wanna address with this is their check-in area.
Okay.
So would you like us to work on this a little bit longer?
Yeah, we can make a couple changes in here and,
Marty, go ahead.
What?
I was, I like the idea on defining the parking, and I think the way we have it worded right now is it was kind of a start to that, but I think that some type of standards based on the number of campgrounds or camping units are going to have. So if you have a park that's only has 50 units, you figure out how many people are going to maybe check in and out, and you maybe require a parking stall for check-in, and we didn't define it that way either. We just said a check-in area, and that's kind of vague in that, okay, yeah, there's a building over here and that's where you check in. What we're looking for is off-street parking for the vehicle while they're checking in, and we could define that a little bit better, and then how many per for every 20 or 25 we have one parking stall to check in. Maybe we need 2 per 25, that kind of thing, and that's what we're looking for. So if you get 140 units that they've got to provide 8 or 10 maybe areas for RVs to come in and park in front of where they check in, kind of like you would check into a hotel. And the way we've defined it, I think, says just a check-in area, and I don't think that properly defines what we're talking about. So as you work on that, maybe we head that direction.
Okay, we'll work on this one a little bit more. Okay, Jerry?
Yep.
Okay, so we're gonna table this one for now and work on that. Is that okay? Lee?
Yes.
Okay. Table it down.
Yeah, I think that's good. We gotta get more specific, sounds like, or else we gotta find out who the fire marshal is that Tish knows that Marty doesn't know.
You want to call for a motion then?
I'll make a motion that we table the amendments 1010, 100 recreational vehicle park zone to the next meeting.
Second.
Vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Alan, aye.
Aye, yes. Yeah, I'm
And
sorry.
Wynn, aye. Hold up your hand if it's an aye.
When's muted?
Wynn said aye.
Can we just get that verbal when I unmuted you?
Say aye.
When I,
Okay, so we'll have this at the next, meeting. And Jerry, if you have anything, that you'd like to talk with, or email me or Alan. Okay?
Yep.
I think Alan would be your better bet. Okay, now we have, we'd like to discuss possible recommendations on 10-28-235, accessory buildings and accessory uses. General requirements in addition to 10-28-235 shipping containers. We had the public hearing on 9/25/19. I think that some of the changes that have been made that have made it not unlimited amount, where Ben has changed it to linear feet on the larger lots, and on C, that letters and numbers must, not may, must. must not be visible. So that's the only thing I make clear.
I don't know if you noticed, but I asked Ben to, I went back and rewatched the video from last week about this particular thing, and Sean admonished us to try to be as specific as possible with regard to color so that it's not open to interpretation. So I can't tell you how long I spent on Google trying to find out what constitutes an earth tone. But these are the colors I came up with that I thought if we just say it's this, then we don't have to argue about it. So
Okay.
now if there's a color somebody holds dear, they consider an earth tone that fits in, do we want to add it, we can discuss that, not with the public, but with the planning commission, sorry, since it's not an open meeting.
You have this list?
I mean, I put hunter green is kind of not a bright green, right? It's sort of a earth tone. Brown beige, tan, gray, copper, and something I found called earth red, which is not bright. Sort of matches our dirt. What do you guys think about that? Do you want to add something?
I think it's great. My house is hunter green, so.
Or you
can't see
could also just indicate it as pastels, because that takes and mutes it all down to a pastel color rather than a hard color.
That's true.
Well, again, I think, I mean, like Sean said, we want to be careful with terms that are open to interpretation.
Yeah.
I tried to use vivid as a color that we didn't want last week, and he thought that was too vague. Like if somebody wanted to paint
Well, I thought we were going with people's homes, the color of people's homes,
Some
and.
people might have a blue house, then you got a blue container. You know what I'm saying?
I know.
Sean pointed out, that's the least of our worries.
Can you add that to this list then?
So it was added, it was a kind of a last minute.
Yeah, it was on the email.
I think it's the second to last document in your packet right now.
Yeah. The only other change I asked Ben to make to it was to add, to basically double the size of linear feet on a 20-acre lot. Last week we talked about somebody maybe needing, as many as 4 big containers scattered across 20 acres. So I suggest we bump it up to 160 instead of 60 linear feet. Those are the only 2 changes.
Okay, oh, I see. Okay, I agree with this. And, I'd like to see somebody make a motion that we pass this to town council.
Okay. Make a motion that we pass amendment 1028-230 with a couple little changes that we've discussed here.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. You too? When I need a aye from you.
There you
Oh, sorry, you moved me under here. Okay, there we go.
When I,
when I,
okay, so we're passing this on to town council. There's the notes to that. And this is just open for discussion between us. And I would like to have a planning work meeting, and then we can all get together. I would like you to think about a tourist commercial zone.
There's
Where do you have-
number 6 is before the tourist.
Oh, I'm sorry. Discussion and amendments to Apple Valley General Map and General Plan Map. I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. I wanted to find out from Marty. Is Marty still there? Marty.
No.
Marty?
Yes, I'm here. I was just away from the computer. I couldn't hit the mute button.
Okay, can we do just the residential at this time? Instead of doing the whole map thing?
I missed some of your words.
So maybe, could I take a moment? Sure. Okay. So basically, the way that the general plan has been currently established is almost like a zone for zone. It's not quite that way, but like out in Bubbling Wells, it's residential half acre. So it's not defining rural estates or single family, but it really implies single family. So there's a lot of this, it's almost a zone for zone general plan for zoning, like a one-to-one relationship. Where the general plan map typically defines things like density for residential structures. And then it defines like a commercial where it could be C1, C2, C3. And so what I've done in this table that's included in the packet is basically propose that this is kind of the very first round, the first draft of what the definition could be for general plan.
Which one is the existing, I guess?
Well, the existing is, I could pull it up and share it if that would be helpful.
Which one of these is one of these existing?
No, there are no definitions within the general plan of the various designations.
So you're just saying these are two examples that we could use?
Yeah, exactly. So one of the challenges that I think that we're currently dealing with is we want to change, or it's been proposed that Bubbling Well area changes to a lower density requirement, when our general plan doesn't even define that, and it really doesn't even allow for those definitions. And so what we're now trying to do is adopt into our general plan these definitions without having a general plan that even accounts for such definitions. And so this really requires a kind of a broader look at the general plan. Or you could just change Bubbling Wells to a lower density, not a lower density, but a 20 acre or 5 acre minimum. Or basically, there's two options right now. We could conform to the way that the map is currently designated, or we could go through the process of completely renovating how the designations of the general plan. So that's the challenge that I have in these recommendations.
I'd like to do Bubbling Wells. We have promised them. At the people on the Mesa, we promised them a year and a half ago that we would have this high density, or very low density.
Didn't we recommend low density for Bubbling Wells last week?
It was, and then Sean, if you recall, Sean questioned if it was designated in the general plan what the density is.
Okay.
Which it is not. There is no density definition in the current general plan.
Right.
And so first we have to define densities, and that's what this table is for, that's included in the package.
But if we want to address Bubbling Wells, just to get that off our plate, we could recommend minimum 5 acres.
Yes.
Just for that area.
Alan, I think what he's saying is we need to have the definitions for all of it in order to change any of it.
No, I don't think we do we?
You could use the current,
rather than piecemealing.
instead of saying low density, you could say what the current general plan is using. And I'm pulling that up right now as by way of example.
Couldn't we say like minimum RE5 or something?
No.
No.
No, you need to just define it as on a general map, we should be calling it a low density. And then we just have a definition that says, here's what low density is someplace else. And so, low density starts at 5 and goes up from there. So someone that has 40 acres can still build on low density, but so can the guy at 5 acres.
Right.
That gives you basically a 5 acre minimum if it's low density.
Marty, we have two options in front of us. One is we go through that exercise, which to define all these things for the general map, but then that kicks the can down the road about Bubbling Wells in the meantime, which is fine if we want to do that.
What we talked about last week was we're just missing the definition, and that's what we've been working on this week. That's been going back and forth in some emails. Is what would low density, medium density, and high density look like? And that's what we have to arrive at: is what is low, medium, and high, and we're done. And then we just say Bubbling Wells is low density, and here's the definition. I thought that's what we were working on all week.
Yeah, it's like
I guess the
5 acres plus.
that all one meeting is does everybody feel like these particular land use designations don't require any more discussion between, between meetings? If we're that far along, I guess we can.
I really didn't understand what you said, Alan, but,
Okay, never mind.
we have made,
I'll take your lead on it, Janet. What do you want to do?
I want it 5 acres plus out at Bubbling Wells. At low density. We promised that to several people out there, through 2 administrations. And to not have it done is wrong. So it should be 5 acres plus out there. And that's it. And the rest of the stuff we can work on when we can all get together. Because I think this is too hard for us to work this way.
But you can't pass a map. You can't pass a general map that says 5 acres plus on it. It should say low density, and then low density is defined something.
What Ben was pointing out, Marty, is that we already have a general map that does, general plan that does that. So I don't think yeah, you're right. Probably to do it correctly, we got to define what density means across the whole map. But we don't have it now. So what's to stop us from making one more bad decision on the general map and then fix it all later? Is my question.
Well, we're just changing, Bubbling Wells to 5 acres plus from 1/3 acre, high density.
No, we'd have to leave the word density off of it though, because we haven't defined that. We could say 5 acre plus if there's such a thing on the map, then yeah, we could just say
5 acres plus, single family development.
And then we'll come back in and apply the density layer on top of it after we've got that all fully locked down. We got to do that across the whole map anyway.
Yeah, well, my husband's doing the full map right now. And,
I'll express my resistance to that, because we've taken all this time to get it right, and all we have to do is define what low, medium, and high density is. This isn't rocket science. We just have to define low, medium, and high. We've already been bouncing this email back and forth that defines that, and that's all we have to agree to, and it's done. And otherwise, when we go and fix this later, we got to start all over again with more public hearings, because now we're going to change it from 5 plus to, I mean, this is what we were working on for the last 2 weeks, is
you and I have been emailing back and forth. And I think what you came up with was perfect. 5 acres plus, 1 acre and above, and then 1 acre and less.
I feel like we're having 2 different discussions. So I don't have a problem with us taking action on density definitions. But what does that do with regard to Bubbling Wells? No, I'm asking Marty.
It's because Bubbling Wells, we're talking about defining Bubbling Wells right now says R half acre. That's incorrect to define any area as R half acre or R 1 acre. It should be low, medium, or high density. And then that gives some flexibility in the long run. And so Bubbling Wells, we're trying to define as just low density. Low density is defined as 5 acres or more. And then there's your 5 acre minimum then. And that way someone comes in and says, I want to make a 1 acre subdivision in the middle of this 5 acre, low density area. So sorry, you can't do it. That's how it works. And this is what we've been working on for how many months. And it's if we've got to have a public hearing for that density, that's what we need to put on the calendar. Public hearing for density definitions. I think we've already got them nailed down. I didn't know that everybody wasn't included in the emails on that, but basically it's just defining what low, medium, and high density is. And then from there, everything's defined. When we go out and start changing the general map, we just refer to that.
Right, and that's what I was trying to get at earlier. It sounds like you're advocating that we make the we define what density is first, and then we apply any change we make to the general map based on definitions of that.
And it can be done in the same meeting, but we just have to do a general map. Like on the general map, let me bring up the other one that Janet was talking about, which is the tourist commercial. Now, if you, I'm kind of becoming a fan of her idea on that, but the tourist commercial is created when we define that. But at the same time, if we want to change or add to the definition, what is tourist commercial? That includes a hotel, it includes an RV park. I mean, what items that are currently in C2 zone, we don't want in C2 zone, we want it in tourist commercial. And then by defining, say, Main Street, for example, as tourist commercial, you're now limiting hotels to Main Street by creating that and by pulling hotels out of the C2 zone. And so I can see where that, you know, it's something that is old Janet's idea. I thought, wow, this is actually pretty insightful. And see where this is very, very good idea, because now, you know, you go to, for example, that property that Russ was talking about earlier on next to Cedar Point. Today, they could build a 3- or 4-story hotel there. And now you've got a hotel that's real tall, it's looking down into the backyards of the neighborhood. Yeah. And so I can see the wisdom in having a C2 commercial there that doesn't include hotels. Yet in tourist commercial, it does. And so when we define that in that chart, so we're going to want to do the chart that says, here's what we want to amend the C2 zoning to not include and include, and add tourist commercial to that chart, and what's allowable in that. Like, for example, you might have a bike shop, and it can be in C2 zoning, but it can also be in tourist commercial. There could be some that are in both. You know, it doesn't have to be one or the other. And then
I guess if I gave you the indication that I'm not, I don't think this is a good idea, then I misspoke. I think it's a great idea for us to have this. I was trying to figure out how do we do something about bubbling wells, and it basically sounds like it just it sounds really important for some reason to have it defined as soon as possible. And I thought, well, if we could call it minimum 5 acres, because that's what we're doing on the plan now. We have to come back later after we've got these locked down. And do we even have to have a public meeting to define these things? Does anybody know?
It's part of an ordinance, so my answer is yes.
Well, it's part of the general plan.
Ordinance, but it's a definition. It's not.
The chart, Debbie has it out. She was holding it up to her screen. And is that an ordinance, or is that off of the general plan?
That's embodied within the general plan.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah, to be honest with you, I don't know if we've got to have a public hearing on general
in the
plan.
packet that Ben has, and it has the definitions of what low, medium, and high density is.
And I mean,
Alan, I understand where Debbie's coming from and other people that live out there. These are all 3rd-acre lots. That could be sold. That could be sold for a PUD, a plan development. And we couldn't say no, the way the general.
What I'm advocating for right now, in spite of everything Marty said, which are all great ideas, and I want to go on record as saying, I think we need to get this, these definitions locked down and then apply them across the map as soon as we can. In the meantime, though, just for the peace of mind of the people out there, can't we just change the 0.5 to a 5 on the map the way it is right now, and just, and we'll come back later. We got to apply these density definitions to the whole map anyway, later. So just for peace of mind out there, what's the downside of us changing the 0.5 to a 5 on the map right now?
I don't see any downside. They need 5 acres out there.
I'd like to make a motion that we do that then.
Because that's people who want to be left alone.
There's a motion on the table.
So
I'll second it.
Just to clarify, amending the general plan map does require a public hearing, which we did have in the last planning commission meeting. but I clarified this in an email. It was not noticed properly, it was not posted to the website.
Yes.
And so we have to have an additional public hearing in addition to the one that was held 2 weeks ago in order to make any general plan map change.
Debbie, I'm sorry.
All right, well, in that case, then I'll withdraw my motion. Then let's get, before we go to that public meeting, let's work within the planning commission to get these definitions locked down.
Okay, when can we do this?
But
When can we do this?
I mean, we can work on it like has happened so far via email if you guys want to. I mean, it sounds like we're pretty close. There are several undefined items in here we just need to define.
Okay, are we good enough to discuss this through email to have a public hearing next week?
Yes.
Yes?
2 weeks, 3.
2 weeks, excuse me.
Sorry, it's 3 for the second.
3. Okay, so we'll have a public hearing in 3 weeks then.
About the map change, and at that meeting, we'll have this thing prepared.
Okay, can I get a motion? You need a motion?
I don't think we can move. We just have to put it on the agenda, right?
Okay, we'll have a public hearing in 3 weeks to nail this down once and forever and send it off to the town council. So this is, we'll table this. Gosh, Deb, I'm sorry.
What's the possibility of having the map all together at the same time within 3 weeks, so we can just have it all?
Yeah, well, why don't you have the math one?
Okay, so
And
maybe
then that way
maybe
we'll
we
have
just
something
need to,
work off of.
put it on the wall and I'll stand in a corner or something.
Okay, my husband will have a map finished, as the one that we paid for here. He's a professional sign painter, he has it all on acetate, so it'll go on any map. And we can make the changes as goes. Now, this is the last thing I wanna talk about, and we can discuss this through email. And it's discussion on proposed zoning for tourist commercial. This is what Virgin did. And this is setting aside 20 to 60 acres for tourist activities. RV parks, hotels, restaurants, bike shops, coffee shops, things like that. We go hiking out at Gooseberry. There are tons of people out there right now. Just tons of people.
I think we should do it. Totally. Great idea.
Yeah, and I'd really like to talk about that because Virgin has done it in such a good way that it is not a hindrance to the residents and it's just a better thing for the tourists, and it's on their way out to where they're going and what they're doing. And we want to be a come to us spot and not Hurricane. Come to us, stay here with us, spend your money here with us, and that's what we want to do. We don't want to spend your money in Hurricane.
That's something we can do through email too?
Yes, that's something we can do through email.
Okay.
Okay, do you have any ideas on something like that?
I think if we have the Virgin ordinance
Yeah.
in front of us, we'll have a starting
And
point.
Franklin Hart also has something up
Okay.
his sleeve, and we'll look at that.
Yeah,
Jerry?
Yeah, no,
Okay, so I can deal with you with email on that?
oh, yeah.
Okay, because Apple Valley, we've got so much to offer out here that people should stay out here and spend their money out here. And we should have restaurants and coffee shops and candy stores to go to, ourselves, and not have to go all the way to Hurricane and doctor's offices and things. So I really want to see this happen.
No, do it.
Okay?
Great idea.
Good. We got one more thing on the menu.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
I second.
Vote,
Aye.
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 All right.
I.
Everybody.
Thank you very much.